Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots. I'm here with Toasty, and we have a big Love Day celebration today, Toasty. Happy Love Day.
Love Day?
Well, it's Valentine's Day. It's the day of love. It's the day. Fair. It's the day when it's the day before Valentine's Day when we're recording this, but it's the day that, your wife buys you flowers. Like, right there next to you.
Well, she technically bought those on Saturday, but yeah.
But for Love Day or just cuz?
It was for the occasion. Yeah.
For Love Day. Yeah. And because it's Love Day coming up, what are we talking about today? The most loving of all monsters?
Yes.
Nice.
We're going to talk about succubi.
Succubuses.
I think it's succubi.
Is it succubi? Is it like Latin where you go to the eye?
Yes. So? Yes, it is, actually.
Cool. All right.
It's like, I think it stands for to lie beneath.
Oh.
It comes from that like Latin root or something. That is like the actual word. The first instance of the word was Latin. So
yeah. Well, we're going to get into all that because we're going to cover the real world inspiration for the monster and all that kind of stuff like we normally do on the second half. But first, we got to talk about how succubi show up in games. And what's going on with that, right? And the other stories, if wherever they show up, basically. So where do we start?
So a succubus female or incubus male, which they don't really show up, but that is just like the counterpart to it, at least in The Witcher. Sometimes considered a demon, look like a highly attractive human being seducing real humans, first appearing in dreams from time to time, then physically, and is interested, or at least succubus are only interested in men that have already come of age.
So not boys. They're not creepers.
Yes.
I mean, they're creepy. They're creepy, but they're not creepers.
Yeah. Thankfully, that would be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Neither succubi nor incubi are particularly violent, though they draw energy from men and women to sustain themselves, often until the point of exhaustion or death of the victim.
Right. They just kind of keep on taking.
Mm-hmm. Particularly in The Witcher, they have a similar appearance to the fauns or satyrs of like Greek Roman mythology, but are actually more closely related to fiends and shorts, despite their relative nonviolent stance.
Yeah. They've got the horns and the the weird legs, right?
Mm-hmm. They have like goat legs with like cloven hooves and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. So in some stories, in some fantasies, they're very human looking. They're almost like more demon / human, and these they're more like the satyr / human kind of look.
Yeah, I generally they have like the satyr. I mean, the stuff that we see, at least modern. I mean, Mr. Tumnus from like Narnia, other franchises that show like satyrs or fawns, whichever.
Right. Right.
They prefer to go with. Definitely not as human as we generally see them in other other media.
Right.
So, but even on that point, they are quite an interesting monster in the franchise, because I was thinking about it, and of course I'd have to do extensive research to figure out the exact statistics on this, but I would say probably throughout the 3 Witcher games, you'd probably fight or kill at least one of every monster represented, right?
Like one of every mainline monster as a but not like scolopendromorphs and like.
Well, you fight those in The Witcher 1, I believe, right? So,
do you? Yeah.
There's some in there, yeah.
Okay.
But so there's kind of like each monster that you see like that are pretty well known, you're gonna fight one, maybe more of them, and kill them usually. But what would you think if I told you that Succubus, you can play through every Witcher game and not have to kill any?
I mean, that tracks. I feel like that makes sense with my experience of the games. Because a lot of them are, tied up with quest lines, or in some cases they seem just like other characters you come across, but aren't necessarily a villain or something that's, tormenting a village or something, and you have to go hunt them down.
But you can specifically fight the ones you've run across in The Witcher 3, but you don't have to. And I feel like probably most people don't.
Right. So they're kind of on par with trolls in the way the series represents them as being these intelligent, more person-like monsters who you can reason with and talk to and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But even then, like sometimes the trolls you run into, you have to fight a couple of them. Like I think there's like static trolls that you have to fight. But you don't run into anything like that with Succubus.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Succubi.
All right. So let's dive into The Witcher 1. Where do we see them in The Witcher 1?
So they are present, though I believe you don't ever actually encounter the Succubus. You come across a quest near the village of Murky Waters.
It's a good village name. This place sucks. Let's name it the Village of Murky Waters.
Murky Waters. Yep. It's a pretty drab village. And basically, you hear about a succubus seducing the local blacksmith. And you get hired by the wife. And you can either help the wife get rid of the demoness by creating an amulet which will repel her permanently. Or alternatively, you can help the blacksmith gather ingredients for a sleeping spell that would temporarily put the succubus to sleep until his wife calms down.
Okay.
And then he would wake her up to resume his affair because he's having an affair with the succubus
right.
and thinks there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a fling.
A little bit of fling, especially with a monster woman who sucks your life out of you. Okay.
Yep. Yep. I don't believe you ever actually run into them, but it is they are present and causing, chaos, messing with the blacksmith couple there.
Okay. So what about The Witcher 2?
So the only succubus in The Witcher 2 shows up in the With Flickering Heart quest. There's a journal entry for the quest that kind of gives the rundown on how it goes. So the torched village near Vergin proved to be the home of a real succubus. This beautiful creature, possessing hooves instead of feet, drew handsome young men to it in order to seduce them and feed on their life forces. The seductress was accused of brutally murdering many young men, and the accusations seemed to be solid. For you must know that the unpleasant scent of sulfur is not the sole inconvenience one must endure when encountering succubi, which can be as dangerous as vampires.
Right, because they suck your life out of you, just in a kind of different way, right?
Yeah. If Geralt chooses to side with Elias during Chapter 2, this is the person who wants to take down the succubus, Geralt investigated the murders and concluded that the succubus was indeed guilty of the murders of which it was accused. The Witcher had no choice but to slay the dangerous, though intensely beautiful creature.
Okay. But we get other options like usual, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you choose to side with the succubus, Geralt investigated the murders thoroughly. He concluded that the succubus was innocent and that it was being framed by a jealous lover. The Witcher cleared the seductress of the charges, and she proceeded to thank him for it in her customary beautiful manner.
What does that mean, Toasty?
He has sex with the succubus.
Oh, yeah.
You expect. Geralt fucks everything.
Right. That's true.
So, typical fashion, which is kind of a thing that the game actually uses, is, kind of like using sex as a way to leverage someone into doing things a certain way or whatever. I mean, we see that a lot in The Witcher 3. How many the couple succubus that we see in there that you really like? No, they're probably fine because it's a beautiful woman, or hell, Kira Metz seducing you, and you like being all right because that was an option. So
yeah. Oh, Kira Metz.
Yep.
Okay, so that's The Witcher 2. Now, The Witcher 3. What else do we know about that?
So we have a bestiary entry, the only bestiary entry we have over them. I don't know if you want to read this one. You tend to like to read these quotes.
Well, the quote says, "Again, good grief, woman, I'm spent." Lester of Smalton to a succubus a few days before taking a vow of celibacy.
Unlike other monsters, succubi and Maenads feel no desire to kill, do not crave human blood, and usually do not, in fact, mean any harm at all. They are motivated by one thing and one thing only, an insatiable lust. They try in vain to slake this by engaging in sexual acts with any other humanoid species they encounter. While it must be admitted that their victims rarely put up much resistance, this does not mean succubi and Maenads do not present any danger. Their never-ending advances, though pleasurable at first, have pushed more than one man to madness or even death. Succubi and Maenads usually can be found near human settlement, including small villages and populous cities. They prowl at night, though when stricken by serious need, they will leave their lairs during the day as well. They shower their affections on men as well as women, the young as well as old, the ugly as well as beautiful. Some of them are particularly fond of pastors and other holy men whose seduction they treat as a sort of game.
It's kind of more of a, I don't know, probably entertaining for them. It's more of like a, let's see if I can get the holy guy.
Those succubi are peaceful by nature. When forced to fight, they will defend themselves fiercely. One should thus not be fooled by their fair appearance. Under the velvety skin of their arms lie muscles of iron, and a blow delivered by their rear goat-like legs or the thick horns on their head can easily crush bone. Right.
So don't let their pretty-looking exterior fool you. They're not just like, a damsel. They are a monster. They're stronger than they look.
Mm-hmm. They got the strength of a monster. Yeah. So they are of the class hybrid. They try to live close to their prey near towns and villages. Some inhabit cities. Damn, I already forgot her name. There's one like Sama or something.
The one in the
like you can find in Novigrad, I believe.
Novigrad? Yeah, I don't remember her name.
They are immune to the Axii sign, and are susceptible to hybrid oil. And, you might want to use Quinn every now and again to avoid some of those really dangerous blows, because they hit like a truck. Tactics that they use are seduction, of course.
And when that doesn't work,
they beat the shit out of you, essentially.
Right.
And the loot that can be acquired is the Succubus mutagen. So not a whole lot of loot to get off of them.
Yeah, I feel like especially in The Witcher 3, they weren't designed like the kinds of monsters that you come across all the time and that you would be going hunting. They're very specific.
I believe there's 2 in total.
Yeah. It's not like the kind of thing.
There's one in Novigrad and there's one in Ardskellig.
But if you do come to blows with one, then, well, man, that's almost a bad pun, isn't it? Then what should you do in combat to withstand their blows?
You need to be very mindful of their brute strength if you are unable to talk them down. They are also accomplished spell slingers and command fire with a natural aptitude.
Chaos magic.
Essentially.
So basically, yeah. Like, oof. Okay.
So simple flashes of fire that a succubus can call upon can disrupt any sword technique a witcher is capable of, and there is no defense save for Quinn or frantic rolls away from the flames. So be careful. They might interrupt your combo.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, watch out for the fire.
Relentlessness is key. A succubus cannot be allowed to control a battle. Explosive bolts or ard can disrupt their spell weaving. Northern wind can freeze them in place. A witcher will succeed in slaying a succubus if they can pin them down and unleash a flurry of strikes.
Basically, keep them from reacting and
don't give them time to do anything. Just hammer them relentlessly.
In a combat sort of way.
Hey, it's up to you, honestly. At this point.
It depends on if you guys are getting along or not.
Yeah. So, and that's about it. There's not a whole lot to defeating them. Generally pretty just be quick, act fast. That's all it really takes.
Okay.
And then for another thing, there's actually an extra, not an extra, but another succubus present in the House of Glass graphic novel. I have not read this, but her name is Vara Vingerberg.
Okay.
So, I'm curious if in that comic, if there's any talking about Yennefer, because that'd be interesting. Like, oh, yeah, no, she was my neighbor.
Yeah. I remember her. Her when she was a pig farmer.
Yeah. She is depicted as similar to Succubi from the game series, except that she lacks cloven hooves. And she also has wings and can look very much like a human. And she is only shown in her true form once in the comic. So
she can use like a disguise, like
she's got like disguising magic to where she can look like just a standard person.
Right. I guess that tracks too. I mean, they're very powerful magical beings.
So and also the wings. This is an interesting addition there. That could potentially be a problem if he had to fight her, but I don't believe he does.
Yeah. So we don't get any succubus in the mainline books then.
No,
not at all.
Really don't.
Yeah.
It's there's like, again, the books don't really have a lot of monsters in them. Like there's a few, but most of the ones that we see are not present. And we get like the main ones that come to mind is like the Kikimora that he but he doesn't actually fight it. He just has already fought it. The Zoigle fight, the Brooks, a
Jin.
She doesn't really fight either. It's more of like a
it's like a plot device, basically. Yeah.
So like he doesn't encounter a whole lot of monsters, and sometimes the ones he does are just like they tell us, hey, he fought this monster, and like he comes out successful.
Right. The book is much more interested in the story of the characters and Geralt's relationship with Ciri and all that stuff. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Yeah. So if you want succubi in your life, then go play the games, because you got more of them there than you're going to find anywhere else. All right. Let's go take a break. We're going to thank our patrons, and we'll be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
Here we are in the middle of the show. Imagine that. This is where we get to thank our patrons, and no new patrons this week, but thank you to all 14 of our current patrons. And that includes Ben of Temeria and Jared M., our higher vampires who get shout outs every week. Thank you so much for all of your support. We really do appreciate it. And if you'd like to check out how you can help support us, and also get a bunch of stuff like joining us for the end of the month patron episodes, which the next one's coming up in 2 weeks on the 27th, because it's a short month. You can sign up on patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast. You can also get ad-free episodes. You can get episodes a day early, a whole bunch of different other kinds of things like t-shirts and all sorts of fun stuff. So go check that out, and I will have the new shirts up probably later this week for you guys to check out on the Patreon. So another thing for those of you who are currently tier 4 will get new shirts if you stay signed up tier 4 or 5, and then tier 3 will get stickers of those designs. And you got plenty of time to sign up now to make sure you get all 4 of the 4 designs. You get one every 3 months. So go check that out. And also, we don't have any new reviews or ratings, or at least we can see the ratings, but we can't actually, there's no words tied to them. So we have no more reviews to read out. But thank you to everyone who drops us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else. And we really do appreciate it. If you want to get your words on a future show, give us a 5-star rating and we'll read it out. That's what we got for the middle of the show this week. Let's get back to Succubi. Here we go.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, Genesis is in chat. She's reminding us that we could play a monster dating game this month, because we just discussed that last time. Yeah.
So if you want to be part of a monster dating game, sign up before the end of the month.
It's going to be good.
Get in on that. It's going to be very interesting.
It's going to be fun times. And Sansterbot asks the question, does that mean she got a bit of Geralt's energy? The whole Geralt ends up with her at the end of the quest thing. And I would suppose some, but he also knows enough to not keep going back to the well. Right?
I think, generally speaking, I imagine it's kind of like a bit of a, like, he's smart enough not to like continue with it. But it's also like, he's way more resilient than just a standard mortal man.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't affect him in the same way, probably.
Yeah, he would probably, if I think I assume that there's a succubus out there that's like whole design is to get like a witcher, so she just has like a feast,
right?
Because I imagine it's probably like eating very plentifully, and they last a lot longer. So
yeah. I would also imagine, because they are kind of magical creatures, that they probably have the ability to like turn it on or off in some regard. Like maybe it's just not an automatic thing that happens, but maybe not. We don't really know. Like this is not these. We're going into the like maybe this speculation part of
the hypotheticals.
The hypotheticals, yeah. All right, but let's talk about real world mythology, because like many of these monsters, these have some real world sources, or at least inspiration in mythology and some other places. Where do we start?
Yeah. So today, the word succubus conjures up voluptuous images of women with long wavy hair, silky skin, flawless curves. They tend to be depicted wearing skimpy leather costumes, to show off everything.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Toasty, words are hard.
Words are hard. Oh.
Words is hard. I should have done it to myself earlier. I messed up some too. So I'm just going to give it to both of us right there. Go on.
And they don't try to hide the telltale signs of their demonic nature. Bat wings, barbed tails, curled horns, glowing eyes are all common among modern succubi.
So in this description, we've got the wings that were mentioned from the comic book. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about tails, but tails show up. And
I think
horns.
I'm trying to remember, but like... since in The Witcher they are like, I imagine it's like a goat tail, which aren't very like prominent,
right? Okay. Not like a demon tail like you would think, but maybe.
Oh, man, I have that. I can't remember now.
We gotta look up pictures of succubi butts.
And generally, like, I don't tend to fight the monsters that I don't have to fight.
And
like they usually in the cutscene, they show them from like torso up. So you don't really see a whole lot of like the lower half. They've
got like long goat.
They do.
They've got like longer tails, but with like the little goat,
like a longer
little fluffy
tail.
Goat thing at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
So, but they don't mention the legs. Then we also have glowing eyes in this, which is another feature, I guess.
Yeah. So is this generally, and like this actually makes me like think of like specifically, tieflings from like D&D, because like there are like there's some specific, like they tell you they have like a list of like demonic features, and so like horns, wings, tails, like goat legs, cloven hooves are things you can add to like tieflings. It's like just generally stuff that is in line with like something of a demonic nature, like demons have these aspects to them.
Right.
So,
and the reason why The Witcher and Dungeons and Dragons and all these other sources all go back to that same source is because these were descriptions that came from actual history, where people would describe demonic beings in these ways.
Mm-hmm. These she-demons weren't always so glamorous. From the dawn of their legend, well through the medieval ages, succubi were considered hideous, deformed creatures. They were somewhat smaller than average people, and they stooped and crawled instead of walking upright. Their feet were like raptors, their faces like gargoyles, and their fingers tipped in ragged claws.
Man, so they really got an upgrade as time went by.
Yeah, well, I mean, sex sells, they
figured out the marketing plan of how to
the
get
sex
more
monster.
clients.
We got to make them look pretty, right? So that's what people want to see.
Right.
So as for personality, modern succubi tend to have intense charisma and seductive power to match their good looks. They're clever and tantalize men with their words as much as their bodies. They can be domineering and vengeful if they are slighted, but they ultimately take pride in their ability to please and manipulate men. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, the older depictions had pretty nasty personalities. They were sneaky, controlling, and malicious. Despite being sex crazed, they had no interest in pleasing men. Instead, they used sex for their own purposes, to please themselves, to corrupt the pious. There's that little hint there. Yeah. To gain life force, or even to have children.
So this is another one of those creatures that the origins can be traced back to things like night terrors. Because back before there was any scientific understanding of what was going on with night terrors, you were kind of half waking up, but you still didn't have control of your movement. But you had the sense that there was something sitting on your chest or manipulating you, and it felt evil and scary. And so that's why the older versions of the succubus have this kind of like intense, scary, malicious kind of quality, because they were basically visions or feelings that you would get in the midst of a night terror, as opposed to the more modern depictions, which have been kind of updated for the modern world and that kind of thing. So it's interesting. It's interesting. But we know that succubus are just like the female version, right? There's incubus too. And I don't mean the band. There's the band. Do you know the band Incubus? They're not that good. Somebody's going to get mad at me.
It's like, I know. Yeah, I know. I can't think of any songs that I've heard though.
It's been a while. Like late 90s, early 2000s. Anyway. Okay. But so there's Incubus too, right? And so they're pretty similar, but like the male version.
Yes. So the incubus is a male sex demon said to attack women in the night. Since demons cannot reproduce on their own, the succubi and incubi work together to produce offspring. Getting a tad bit graphic here, but succubi collect semen from their trysts with men, then pass the semen off to the incubi, who use it to impregnate women.
Wait, so they're just passing it around between humans? But that's how they make more of them?
Yes.
So it's like they corrupt the semen and then insert it, and then now you give birth to a demon baby?
Yes.
Wow. I'd never heard that. That's weird and gross and cool all at the same time.
So when the child, called a cambion, is born, it will have demonic characteristics thanks to the touch of the succubus and incubus.
Okay.
So while they have many similarities and a close working relationship, many think that succubi and incubi are the same creature.
They just put on a different guise. They manipulate the way they look.
Yeah. And they just shift between male and female forms according to whatever partners they are pursuing.
Right. Which would make sense. And in a more understandably modern context, what that partner would find appealing. Right. So, yeah. Okay. Weird. I never considered that either.
Yeah. So there's actually a bit of a there is many cultures that this particular figure shows up in. Many might recognize her from Christian. So mythology, basically. I want to say mythology, but I guess somebody's gonna get mad because they just call it Christianity.
But Chris, it's not Christianity itself. Like if you actually look at the Old Testament and the New Testament, we're talking about Lilith. There's almost no reference at all. This is part of, even if you are a firm Christian believer, the concept of Lilith is on the fringe. This is definitely more in the mythological range of it, and probably highly influenced by later Hebrew writers and people like that. And then it worked its way back into Christianity. But you're noting here that Lilith, or a character like Lilith, shows up in many other cultures, including Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Judaic, and Christian mythology. So it's almost more like the concept of Lilith is like a fundamental idea that just got spread around the ancient world and then just pops up here and there.
Yeah, I think after we go over this, probably talk about particularly why that is, because there's probably a pretty strong contributing factor why Lilith is represented in so many different things.
It's because she's real.
Right.
And we can summon her right now if you repeat this with me. Ready, everybody?
We're not doing that. Anyways, so Lilith first appeared in Sumerian culture as a goddess of fertility and witchcraft. Later, the Assyrians and Babylonians associated her with dark demons. The Greeks gave Lilith, or they called her Lamia.
Lamia, like which you see monsters that are Lamia in like mythology and other games and fantasy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. An extensive backstory. She was a beautiful woman who Hera transformed into a monster after her beauty attracted Zeus's roving eye. In her new monstrous form, Lamia roamed the world, seducing men and eating babies.
Eating babies. Everybody needs to eat a baby. Wait, no, that's not true. Yeah, so this is one note here. If the foundation of this character or archetype is from Sumerian, then it makes sense that the Assyrians and the Babylonians, who were like neighboring cultures, would have seen her as more demonic, because that's what you did in the ancient world. You had your god, and everyone else's gods. It's not that they didn't exist; it's that they were wrong. Mm-hmm. Our god's the best one. Your god sucks. So your god has these negative qualities. You think yours is the god of fertility. Or fertility. Words. I'm gonna hit the words is hard button again. Here we go. Fertility. No, ours is, and so yours has all these other terrible qualities, and that ours doesn't. And basically, they would compete with each other. Like there's stories in the Bible of like, we'll stand on the hill and summon your god, and I'll summon my god, and they'll fight or whatever, right?
Yeah. So moving on to the Judeo-Christian mythology, they described her as Adam's first wife, created at the same time as him. Unlike Eve, Lilith was no meek partner. She refused to honor Adam as her leader. Instead, she went off exploring on her own and discovered the Red Sea, where hordes of demons lived.
Okay.
The rebellious woman, and that's a key term right there, rebellious woman,
yes,
found that she liked the demons more than Adam, so she mated with them and began bearing Lilim at the rate of more than 100 per day.
That's a lot. That's a lot of babies.
Mm-hmm. These Lilim went out into the world as demons, some of them as sexy and independent as their mother, and these became the succubi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a crazy story. So do you know why there's okay, two things. The concept of Adam's first wife is not in the Bible. Secondly, the idea that ancient men would make up stories or add stories or whatever, including stories in the Bible that are against rebellious women is very common. Because these old guys wanted to control women because the patriarchy and all of that. And so if they put it in their holy book, then it was a lot easier to tell women what to do and point at a thing and say, well, look, you're supposed to do what I say. Be a good wife like Eve was and whatever.
No, I mean, this is specifically what it like the sentence. She refused to honor Adam as her leader. They were not partners in cooperating. No. Yeah. No, he was the master. She was beneath him.
Right.
That was the concept. So, yep. That's, like I said, that was the key on the rebellious woman part. That was the key to the whole thing.
So what about other cultures outside of like these Middle Eastern based?
So there's many others, probably not even all of which are included here, but India has the Yakshini, or Yakshini, however that's pronounced. Arabia has the Corinha, maybe
something. Yeah.
Native Americans have the Deer Woman, which specifically sounds like it probably would line up with the depiction that we see. And then China has the Mogwai.
Wait, like Mogwai?
Yeah, I was thinking
gremlin?
Yeah, that was like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, that's the word. They probably used that for the movie because they were like, oh, that's cool. It's a cool word. It's, a place far away from Eastern, the Eastern stuff is far away from Western culture. But that's, I don't think of poor little Gizmo as a succubus.
I didn't either, but I was just like, weird. Wait a minute. Yeah. So getting back to what we said like at the very beginning. The word succubus first appears in medieval English. It does take root with Latin to lie down or to lie beneath, which I think specifically it said that it was in terms of like the position of a woman to a man in bed.
Yeah,
lie beneath.
I have a feeling that's another one of those references. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
By the late 15th century, these she-demons were well known and often discussed by
theologians.
I was
there you go. Theologians.
Theologians. Yeah, I was like,
are we gonna get a third words? Oh, third words is hard. 3 of them in this episode.
Oh dear.
Is that any record?
Probably.
It might be.
Who tried to explain their origin, their ability to reproduce, etc. Later, succubi popped up in witch hunts. Women who tried to seduce men were accused of being succubi in disguise, while women who became pregnant outside of wedlock were accused of consorting with incubi.
Which is super convenient because it doesn't put any of the men who were actually consorting with them at risk of being in trouble. Because if you can just blame it on the fictional creature that's out there somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. So again, this all goes back to trying to control those crazy women. Men just trying to control people.
Yep. During the Renaissance and Romantic period, interest in grotesque, subversive female demons declined. Instead, artists shifted their attention to Greece's Lamia, who was both beautiful and unfairly cursed.
So a more tragic figure that's better to paint for like murals and all sorts of crazy stuff.
More endearing, like, you know, it wasn't fair. Well, you know, someone, I guess,
right.
Not that you can just purely hate, more of a, because I mean, they like romanticize this stuff, trying to make it more like endearing for people. It wasn't until the rise of Gothic literature that succubi began to reclaim the spotlight, but were still changed from their original form, being more beautiful and intelligent.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot here that like ties into just the bare nature of humanity over the years, right? This whole idea of like a woman who could make decisions on her own and be sexually free is a terrifying thing to a bunch of men who are trying to maintain control over society. And they're like, and also don't get blamed when they do things bad. Like in the ancient world, if a woman was pregnant out of wedlock, she was the one that suffered. It wasn't the man. Like in biblical times, like that,
I mean,
that was the nature of it. And in some places today, that still is the nature. It's like the guy won't get in trouble. Like it takes two to tango, but it's the woman who gets in trouble. Women
were always perceived as like, you know, you should control yourself. Like, you know, you should control this taint or these whatever. Urges.
You are tempting men. All of that.
If a man did something like that, it was the woman's fault because she tempted him. It was her who caused him to slip from the righteous path or whatever.
Right. And on top of that, in the ancient world, women were also considered property. And so the property needed to, just like, you know, if you're shipping food to the local market, you want to make sure that the food isn't spoiled. Well, if you have a daughter, you can't marry her off if she's, quote, spoiled. So like the whole thing just compounds on itself and ends up just terrible for women, unfortunately. But that's, you know, that's why progress is generally a good thing. And hopefully we're moving to more and more, you know, fair society where people are treated correctly, but
there's still people that think like this these days, which is honestly really sad.
Yeah, there really is. Well, that's a succubus and a little bit about incubus as well. So kind of a double, kind of a double bestiary. I was going to say bestiality episode. That's a different thing.
No, it's a different thing. A very different thing. Very different thing. It's not what we're doing here today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up. Words have been extra hard today, but thank you everybody for listening and for being here. And Toasty, you got anything else going on you want to share?
Yeah, if you're interested in cyberpunk world and lore, I do the Cyberpunk podcast or Cyberpunk Lorecast. With Genesis, who's been talking in chat today, or usually does. And then I also do the Cyberpunk Red actual play podcast, Cyberpunk apostrophe D, with the Fumbling Four and Almighty Crit Gang.
Nice. Go check those out. You can, wherever you're listening to this, you can look that up. You just pull up the search and look those up. Or if you're looking for other links and other shows and some of my shows, then robotsradio.net is the place to go check all that stuff out. And just a reminder, 2 weeks from now, we'll be having a monster dating game with our patrons. So if you'd like to join us, there's still plenty of time to sign up, and we'd love to have you as part of the show. And we record these in the late afternoon. We record those at 9 o'clock Eastern. What is that? 6 o'clock Pacific. So it's a little bit later in the day. So it makes it easier for our patrons who typically have to get home from work and all of that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, come join us and hang out on the Discord. We'd love to chat with you guys, and thanks for being here. But we'll be back with another episode next week. And do you have an idea where we're going, Toasty? Any thoughts on this one?
No, not yet.
Not settled yet. We'll figure something out. But we'll see you next week. Until then, stay safe out there and
stay safe on the path.
That was your line. I messed it up. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.